Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. I'm Carrie Volmer-Sanders, President of Field to Market, and I'm really excited to welcome you to our webinar today, highlighting the benefits of the Fieldprint platform version 5. Just last month, Field to Market released its most significant update, not its first update, but a most significant update to one of the industry's most widely used and affordable sustainability measurement tools, the Fieldprint platform. These enhancements support Scope 3 emissions reporting, helping companies more accurately track and report progress towards their sustainability commitments. Today, we're going to walk through the release's features to explore how the platform can help you meet your sustainability goals. We'll also hear from ADM's Director of Climate Smart Ag Origination, Paul Scheetz, who will share his perspective on the value of the platform. And you'll have a chance to ask questions during our Q&A at the end. So please submit your questions in the Q&A feature down at the bottom. So not only am I president of Field to Market, I'm also a sixth-generation farmer. A few photos here highlighting our farm, Grains and Greens. We farm up in Northwest Ohio, Northeast Indiana, in the Western Lake Erie Basin. And on our farm, we grow corn, soybeans, and wheat. We till as minimal as possible, and we plant cover crops each year. So that photo on the top right is cover crops, a rye cover crop planting that my kids planted this fall after harvest. The photo of me there is planting, this is me planting a cover crop on another field. But the farm in the top right, I entered that into the Fieldprint platform, and that's what Sydney will be showcasing a little bit later in the demo. But that farm has been in the Sanders family for over 150 years. So it's really important to us to think about how to take care of the land now and for generations to come. So it's exciting to have that in the background as we talk later. But if you're new to Field to Market or need a little bit of refresher on what we do, Field to Market was created about 20 years ago to build trust and action in defining, measuring, and advancing the sustainability of food, feed, fiber, and fuel in the United States. And by uniting the ag supply chain, the key stakeholders around common definitions and measurement frameworks, Field to Market seeks to drive continuous improvement in the sustainability of commodity crop production. Just as within all elements of our work, the drive for updates of the Fieldprint platform came through a collective process with contributions from all 5 of our member sectors that you can see here: the growers, civil society, which affiliate members, which includes research, university and government organizations, agribusiness, and then brands and retail. Here at Field to Market, we have 3 key values: convene, create, and deliver. With Convene, we foster collaborative action across the ag value chain. And just want to take a moment highlighting 2 events that we have next month in Anaheim. We have our fall membership meeting and the Sustainable Ag Summit. The summit is the largest sustainability conference focused on agriculture in the United States. We really hope you can make it. If you haven't registered already, there'll be some information in the chat. That you can register to join. We also we develop tools, including the Fieldprint platform that we're talking about today, that allow farmers to measure their sustainability impact and deliver. We provide programs and innovative solutions for sustainability goals. We currently have about 200 members representing those 5 sectors and engaging in all aspects of agriculture. We are committed to meeting the needs of our membership, and version 5 of the Fieldprint platform was developed as a result of that member demand. Now, let's talk about how our approach comes to life through our tools and our programs. The Fieldprint platform is a free online-based tool and assessment framework that empowers brands, retailers, suppliers, and farmers at every stage in their sustainability journey to measure the environmental impact of commodity crop production and identify opportunities for continual improvement in U.S. agriculture. The platform supports 17 commodity crops, with a holistic view of sustainability through our 8 environmental indicators. You can see on that spidergram, those metrics include land use. We'll start at the top. Land use, soil conservation, soil carbon, irrigation, water use, energy use, greenhouse gas, water quality, and biodiversity. Version 5 of the Fieldprint platform included updates to our energy use, greenhouse gas emissions, and soil carbon metrics. And the Field to Market team are going to let you know more about those updates shortly. But part of the cool thing about the Fieldprint platform is that spidergram chart that you see. It visually allows you to quickly understand how management practices impact sustainability scores. So the smaller the footprint, the more sustainable the production on that field. The Fieldprint platform can also be, it's not just online on our website, it also can be accessed through either through one of our 6 data management partners that you see here on the right. And the development of the platform and its regular updates, including version 5, work through this multi-stakeholder process that's guided by our Fieldprint project framework to ensure that the science behind our indicators is sound and can help inform on-the-ground decisions. When I entered my data into the platform, it took about half an hour for us to get everything started. My husband and I did it together because he knows some things, I know some things, and we did not, as most farmers wouldn't, didn't really look at any of the help videos and click on any of the boxes. So it was pretty intuitive and straightforward, and hopefully you'll find that yourself as we go through the updates here. But with the Fieldprint platform, Field to Market members can participate in Fieldprint projects. And these projects support grower adoption of sustainable and regenerative agriculture practices, are flexible and credible storytelling opportunities of positive outcomes. They facilitate collective action to meet sustainability goals and increase transparency to strengthen public confidence through credible action. In 2024 alone, projects of the platform included 62 partners, reaching over 10,000 growers on over 6.4 million acres. This is just incredible, the breadth and depth that the platform has. And the Fieldprint platform version 5 wouldn't be possible with the extra support from these members here, ADM, Bush Brothers, Cotton Inc., Illinois Corn Growers Association with their precision conservation management work, Mars, Nutrien, and PepsiCo. I also just want to take a moment to thank our Field to Market team for all their work in achieving this monumental update. It hasn't been easy, and they've been working many extra hours. So I really appreciate the work they've put in. You're going to hear from 2 of the team members right now, Sydney Musha, our Sustainability Projects Manager, and Eric Coronel, Director of Science and Research, so they can share with you a demo of version 5. And Eric, before we start the demo, could you talk a little bit about the key updates and why they were needed?
Of course. Thank you, Carrie. This work has been being done for the past 2 years in relationship with the Field to Market Metrics Committee and a lot of stakeholders along the way. And one of the things that we did, taking a step back to the revisions and this major release of the platform, is that we needed to speak a common language across sustainability platforms. So when looking for common languages, then we went to international standards like the GHG protocols and the SBTI framework to be able to align our outputs, our indicators, our methods with global standards. So that's what triggered the revision to energy use, to greenhouse gas emissions, and the amazing addition of a soil carbon metric to our system, which has been in the works for over a decade. We have been in collaboration and communication with many organizations over the years, and through a collaboration with Colorado State University, we can now bring quantitative soil organic carbon fluxes into the platform with the SWAP Plus model. So that enables feeding the soil carbon metric, also feeding the soil organic carbon fluxes of greenhouse gas emissions. And it brought a huge improvement in terms of not having independent crop years anymore. Now we can talk in terms of crop rotations, of multi-year field histories to bring crops into context, rotations and management into context at the field level. So with that, that brought a redesign of the user interface to be able to be respectful of the time of users of the Fieldprint platform for growers, to make sure that the time that they spend entering data is valuable for them and for the downstream partners.
Great. Thank you so much, Eric. I'm going to go ahead and transition over into the demo itself. So hopefully everyone can still see my screen, welcoming us to the Fieldprint platform. So as Carrie said, I'm Sydney, and this is what you will see when you log into the Fieldprint platform for the first time. We have our welcome, or our dashboard, which tells you lots of things about these announcements, updates that are coming to the platform, as well as events such as our fall membership meeting that Carrie mentioned earlier, as well as some resources. So you can access a dedicated site for the Fieldprint platform for our support portal, either here or by using this link over here in the platform as well. So this will give you a lot of information about how to walk through, what the questions are in case you're having a conversation with your farmer to enter this data. As we get started, I also wanted to point out here with this little feature here about the Fieldprint platform version 5, or user snap. So we took a lot of time to go through how to update the platform. Eric mentioned a whole user design interface, and we did not do that in a vacuum. We worked with a great user group all the way from the beginning of this year, and you can still suggest features or report bugs through this user snap feature. So if you think of something that you would like, or if you experience an issue, please let us know. We're monitoring this, and we definitely love to gather more feedback as we go through this process for future updates. So we'll go ahead and go into Carrie's farm. To do this, I'm also going to showcase what we call delegate access. So this allows a user to go in on behalf of another user. So Carrie has given me delegate access to her account. So I will be able to kind of go down here and type in her name and click this button and switch the user. So again, it shows us our dashboard here. It's all very much similar. The only difference is here that you can see that I'm entering data on behalf of Carrie Bulmer-Sanders. One thing before we move on to the fields themselves, I want to go ahead and demonstrate this field map location here. So this provides a dashboard view of your farms and fields. So really lets you know wherever you are, what was the last crop that was grown, and some more information about the farm and field here. So it's a very high level overview and something that we think is useful for folks as you continue down this process. So now that we've discovered all of the aspects of the dashboard, we'll go ahead and go over how you start this process. So before you go and do anything, you have to have a farm name. So you would go ahead and go in here and type in a farm name. As you can see, Carrie's already done this with Aunt Mary's farm. Once you add in your farm, you'll hit save and add field. And I'll just go ahead and show you what that process looks like. So once you do that, you'll be entered here into this new field area. You'll again enter a new field name, and you'll be able to go in and find your field in a various ways. So you can either search by an address, you can use your current location, or you can zoom into a point on the map. So I'm just going to go ahead and zoom in randomly to show you how this process works before we go over into Carrie's field. So once you get close enough in here, you can click this button to select a CLU polygon. It'll bring up all of these polygons. You'll be able to select one and then click this edit button. So you can edit it as you see fit. So you can make sure you can drag and drop it to really reflect what your process is here. So how your field is shown. This will directly update the calculated and plantable acres here. So definitely take a look at that and see where you need to update it. So for instance here, this clearly maybe shows like a grass waterway. You may want to take out a few acres to indicate that you're not planting that area over here. Data is being pulled from USDA soil data. So if you do have an updated soil result, you can override this data with this toggle button, but otherwise you can go ahead and save and continue. You have the opportunity to add additional field details if that's something that you'd like to track for your project or just your farm in general. And I want to highlight too these question mark buttons here. This helps you get more information about what is being asked of you for these questions. So I'll highlight a few more of these examples as we go through, but just wanting to give you that example there. So we're going to go ahead and go in and leave this page, and we're going to go to this little test field that I set up earlier too, because once you save your field, you'll be given this screen, which is the historical crop interval section. So as Eric indicated, and Carrie as well, that we updated the soil carbon indicator. Part of that is now we need some high level data all the way back to 2008 to help with that process. And what we mean by high level data is we just need the crop, yield, commercial in, tillage, if cover crops are planted, and if irrigation is used. And that really feeds into that SWOT plus model. There, you're able to change any of this information if for some reason the satellite imagery data that we're collecting and gathering isn't correct. So all of this information is, typical yields, typical commercial in, and the tillage for that area that we have. What's interesting about this feature here is you have the ability to check all for cover crops or irrigation. And then if you, for some reason, don't irrigate some certain years, you can easily uncheck those, and that will help through this process. So once you're kind of done here, you'll mark this section as complete. And for this purposes of this demo, we'll go ahead and switch over to the field that Carrie's already entered data in. So as you can see, once you've marked complete, you're entering into this screener section. So this now shows crop intervals. They're no longer historical crop intervals, and field details. What we recommend is going to field details next. This is a section that captures long-term field level changes that typically remain consistent from year to year. So these are your conservation practices, if any land use has been undergone for the field, and then tile drainage. Carrie's indicated that, reduced tillage is being used since 2008. If, for instance, she had additional conservation practices that were being utilized, she could select through this drop-down menu. If you're unsure of what a conservation practice is, there's again some highlighted information for you to better understand what we mean by, say, drainage water management. You can put the install year here, and then it's really important to kind of only revisit this when you kind of uninstall a practice. So if you stop doing reduced tillage, or if you, bulldoze over a grass waterway, definitely come in here and mark that that is no longer on the field for that process. So we'll go ahead and delete that. Land use change, Carrie's indicated that there is nothing there. This does go into 20 years, and this is really to help us get in that alignment with the greenhouse gas protocol. So we really need this information here, and this is also an opportunity for us to showcase that there's a lot of logic with these types of questions. So Carrie indicated no, there are no additional questions for her to answer. But if you have had a land use change in the last 20 years, we're going to ask, how many acres were converted? What was the year of the conversion? And what was the previous land use type? When you get to the previous land use type, a few additional questions may also pop up. So for grassland, we're asking, how was it managed before? And then for forest, we're asking the species, and you'll be able to kind of drop down. Again, definitely take a look at any of these question marks if you have any questions about what is being asked for that. So we'll go ahead and cancel and not save any of those changes here. Again, with tile drainage, it's as easy as Carrie's entered. Yes, she has some tile drainage. When the install was, she's indicating that it's still present on the field, and the density level. And again, if you have questions about how to answer this between high and standard, we have that ability over here with that question mark. So we'll go ahead and not save this, and we'll move back to the crop interval section. So as you can see, Carrie's typed in quite a few different intervals here. We don't need you to go back to 2008 to get any of these to run now. It's important just to focus on the interval that you're most interested in. So for this example, we're going to go ahead and do the 2025 soybeans that Carrie just harvested. So when you come from the historical crop interval, we have a lot of activities that are pre-populated for you based off of what you've entered. So if you indicated that you have cover crops, a cover crop activity container will be here for you. All of them have, planting of a cash crop and a harvest event. But if you have, indicated nutrient application commercial in for the last one or some sort of tillage event, those will also be here for you. So we'll go into a few of these so you can get an understanding of how these look and feel. If something is missing, or if you want to add more, because these are now activity or date based, you can go over to add activity over here. So you're able to add an irrigation event if you perhaps forgot to check that in that historical interval area there, and then it will populate here. So for example, we'll go ahead and go into planting a cover crop. As we said, it's date based here. So you may want to go ahead and check these dates. Sometimes they get a little snagged based off of when harvest occurs of the last year with when the cover crop is planting. So just something to be aware of, that these dates are important for you to take a look at. You're also able to see what type of cover crop mix was planted. Again, we have some hover help text available for you to understand which one to select that's best represents what you have on the ground. So Carrie's gone ahead and chosen this winter cover crop mix, that it's a non-legume, it's a single species, and then she's indicated this ground broadcast seeding. So based off of what is selected on how the cover crop is planted, a diesel fuel population will pop up for you. So it's auto-populated. Again, this is to help us with our greenhouse gas protocol alignment here. So this is there for you. You don't have to worry about knowing exactly how much diesel fuel you used for that operation. We've already done that for you. You can then indicate how early the establishment was before the frost, how the cover crop was terminated, and then the soil coverage at full growth. And for this one, again, if you're a little confused about what we mean between low, medium, and high, you can go ahead and click that question mark and get some more information to help you make that decision. And then we have the termination event. So we'll go ahead and move to a different section so you can see kind of how that works. So with nutrient application, you can again see that this is date based. So all of these different types of nutrients were applied at this date. If another nutrient application came along at a different date, you would need to add another activity to represent that application at that date. So all of this again is the date, the applied. We've provided the diesel fuel here, and then there are various options for you to kind of go through and select here. We'll go ahead and move on to harvest, just to give you an example of what that looks like. So again, date-based, you have the ability to enter it either here or select the little calendar. You can select the harvest operation that's available, and then the diesel fuel will auto-populate. We do ask the yield, so that's very important to kind of wait to finish doing all of your data collection at that yield point. So none of the metrics can be run until we have that yield number. So you can enter all of your pre-planting or pre-harvest activities and then come back at harvest to finish up and gather that last pieces of information for the analysis to be run. We'll be asking about transportation and then what the fuel was for that. And this is again another question about these step logic here that we have. So if Carrie indicated yes, there would be a few more questions for her to answer, especially if there's on-farm drying. We'll be asking about the system and the moisture that was removed. But since Carrie said there's no drying, we're going to go ahead and move from that. Once you're done with this section, there'll be a little button up here for you to mark complete. Essentially what we did to move from the historical crop interval section into this one. Once you've done that, the checkbox will will appear, and you'll move down to step 2, which is add additional data. So you'll go through each of these activity containers to answer a few additional questions. So I'll pop up nutrient application management just so you can see what these look like as well. So it's asking a lot about NRCS management plans, whether the 4 R's are followed. If you have questions about what those are, again, hit that question mark to see. Then we can go ahead and kind of take a look at habitat here. So here, Carrie's indicated that they're providing foraging and breeding or nesting habitat. Again, if you're concerned about how do I answer that, hit that question mark. And then pest management has also been answered as well here for this. So once you get to this section, it'll again be mark complete up here for this little button, and this section will also receive a check mark. At this point in time, your analysis will run, so you'll either run your analysis, or in this instance, we'll click view since we've already pre-run Carrie's field. But before we move on to that, I wanted to talk through step 4, which is submit your data to a project. We think projects are great. You saw the map that Carrie displayed about how much our members are doing projects. You can enroll in a project using this opt-in feature over here in this section on this black area, and then you'll be able to select which project you have, and then you'll also have a mark here to submit a button here to submit your data to the project. So it's very easy to submit certain intervals to a project this way. It's all kind of very much contained. So we'll go ahead and view Carrie's analysis, and no, Carrie did a great job of explaining these spidergrams earlier. Essentially, again, the smaller the footprint, the more sustainable or less environmental resources are being used. So for this one, you can kind of see exactly how her spidergram is shaping out. Great water quality, very small biodiversity footprint. And we'll kind of go over a few of these things. Before I move further down into the indicator scorecards, which I'll ask Eric to help me on a few things to explain, I wanted to focus on the generate PDF button up here. So you're able to kind of pop out and print out this PDF of this analysis. So you could take this to an NRCS agent or a technical assistance provider and tell them, hey, I'm really interested in sustainability. I've run the Fieldprint platform. What can we do to make my farm more sustainable? And this is a great starting point here. Just to show you a few of the other updates that we've done to the analysis page. We've really focused a lot on making this more user-friendly, more usable, more educational for folks. So you can see that the results are displayed very quickly and easily apprehendable once you click on this area. We also have some general improvement ideas here for you. So if you're thinking about how to improve your wildlife or biodiversity area, we also have a why it matters. So the first step to kind of change is to really think about that why. And then we also have information about the indicator. So how is this scored? What is the basis behind it? And for additional information about each of these indicators, you can view this additional documentation area. Eric and Austin on our science team have worked really hard on this website to make sure that transparency is behind all of the indicators that we have. I'll highlight the water quality one before I turn things over to Eric. And for water quality, Carrie's in that Lake Erie basin, and that's really important for them. They don't apply phosphorus, so you can see that the pathways mitigated are 4 out of 4. So great job on this one. But we've really spent a lot of time updating this one to make it more user-friendly and scorecard focused to really understand and explain what your field sensitivity is and how these credits impact your score. So how do you get to that mitigated part? So you can really see what these credits are for both phosphorus and nitrogen. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn things over to Eric to explain a few of the indicators.
Thank you, Sydney. And for context, the energy use basically is a step towards greenhouse gas emissions. If you click, Sydney, on greenhouse gas, then we can see that our system boundary takes into account basically the industrial type of emissions, along with the soil level emissions like soil nitrous oxide and methane and other emissions. A major improvement that we did for version 5 is complete disaggregation of all emission sources, where we can really hone in into specific emission sources, take a look at the model, especially in the back end. Once we have KDMPs connected to version 5, you'll see that there'll be a lot of powerful detail that will help with analysis, with educational materials, and how to inform the supply chain about potential mitigation or resilience strategies. One of the major changes, if you go a little bit down, is that we can understand the major sources of emission in terms of upstream components, mechanical sources, sources and sinks. And it's important to know that under sources and sinks, the soil carbon model feeds into the component. So you can see the category at the bottom of sources and sinks is called soil carbon stock changes. So that's a modeling from SWAP Plus. So SWAP Plus feeds data into the soil carbon metric along with the greenhouse gas emissions metric. If we go, Sydney, to the soil carbon metric, then we see a historical overview of what the model is predicting. So on a few maybe of the soybean years, the model predicts a little bit of sequestration. Maybe when there is a little bit of additional, in this case, just more residue maybe in the soil or a little bit of tillage, then it predicts a few years with more emissions. But that's what crop production is a biological system, is a very much alive system. It takes into account the soil properties, the weather, the management, and the yield across time. If you have a year of drought, then maybe you're going to have fewer biomass that makes it into the soil. So all of this is taken into account through a process-based model. And we're very excited to make it to this point. It has been a long time in the making. And yeah, we look forward to hearing user feedback and how this can help your organization.
Well, great. Thank you, Eric and Sydney, for the great demo. Now I'd like to welcome ADM's Paul Scheetz to discuss how the Fieldprint platform, including the version 5 updates, help them achieve progress on the ground. Paul, thanks for joining. Grateful if you started out with a little bit of what you do there at ADM and maybe about ADM in general.
Will do. Thanks, Paul. Paul Scheetz with ADM. My title is Director of Climate Smart Ag Origination. I grew up in Carthage, Illinois, on a farm as well. Third generation farmer. I don't know if I can take credit for it anymore. It's probably my brother and my brother-in-law that are the third generation farmers. But I've had a chance to work with Field to Market since 2016. So myself and my team get a chance to design, manage, and execute our sustainability and region ag programs, specifically in North America, with the majority of that work being done in the United States.
Great, appreciate that. So this is a little bit of a fireside chat and wanted to sort of step back and look at it from a more strategic perspective. I were attendee wondering how our program actually fits within someone's strategy. It'd be great to hear from you how the platform supports your sustainability strategy, perhaps starting with the value it creates for farmers, how it helps you understand your supply sheds or your business in general, and then all the way through to how it meets your customer needs.
Yeah, the one thing that we kind of figured out pretty early from an ADM perspective was that to run a successful either sustainability program or region ag program, we couldn't do it alone. There's definitely going to be partners that are needed. And each partner that you have in a successful program kind of needs to have expertise in their specific focus area. Whenever we design a program, we always have a data collection partner, which is one of you guys' QDMP, which is gradable at this time. A technical assistance partner that helps us consult with farmers on conservation agronomy. That includes American Farmland Trust, Practical Farmers of Iowa, Kansas Association of Conservation District, Minnesota Soil Health Coalition, Flat River Soil and Water Conservation District, and Ducks Unlimited as well. And then our role tends to be engaging farmers, since we have over 50,000 farmers here in the U.S. But the one thing that's great is kind of takes an army, and there's only so many hours in the day that while we're working on enrolling farmers or engaging farmers or answering the why, that we have the Field to Market team in the background during those same hours that are working on improving the models and the methodology that's ultimately needed, because that's not necessarily our bag, that's not our expertise. So this partnership with Field to Market has been really, really critical, and being able to scale up our efforts and feel confident about the environmental impacts that are ultimately happening at the field level, which ultimately leads to more funding opportunities and more engagement from farmers as well, Paul.
That's helpful. It speaks to the collaboration of all our projects. They're not one single company. Maybe drilling down a little bit to version 5, you have a lot of projects with a lot of significant acres enrolled. What do you see as the most valuable improvements? Eric touched on them, Sydney demoed some of them. Greenhouse gas emissions updates, scope 3 capabilities now. Just wonder what that means, how it fits with what you're doing there.
The most exciting for me personally is the soil carbon indicator update in more of a quantitative way than we've had in the past. But obviously, the updates around GHG and energy use indicators is going to be really critical. Ourselves and a lot of our downstream partners have made goals and made targets to reduce our Scope 3 emissions. That's one of the categories that we focus on. And getting updated, science-backed modeling is very, very critical. We know that ultimately, to have success, specifically in the Scope 3 emission space, it's progress over perfection, but that doesn't mean, and perfection is probably impossible, but that doesn't mean that we can't, we can just stop progressing ultimately on understanding the science behind the greenhouse gas emissions as well. So I'm excited about all three, probably as excited as I've been on any update over the last 10 years. It's solving an uncertainty problem that we have. Or at least improving off of an uncertainty problem that we have. So we're super excited about it.
Yeah, I would agree. I think in the 10 years I've been at Field to Market, that's probably the biggest change we've had, most significant. So appreciate that. Maybe taking sort of a look at a real world application, curious how ADM uses the data itself to connect farm level sustainability outcomes with your corporate reporting, kind of touched on that a little bit with your supply chain goals. And I don't know, maybe share an example of how the data informs the decision or maybe even just tells the story for you.
Yeah, we have three categories of stakeholders. Upstream are our farmer relationships, downstream are our customers that we'll usually sell agriculture ingredients with, and then we have the public as a whole. And the field to market reporting, as we've had a chance to look over hundreds over the last 10 years, has helped with the conversation of all three. Specifically with the farmer, the spidergram is awesome, but what it really does, it helps us inform how these practices have positive impacts on multiple categories. So it's not always just a carbon story or greenhouse gas emission story, even though we love the carbon intensity scoring component of Fieldprint Calculator. You've got a biodiversity metric. You have my personal favorite is a soil conservation one, specifically when talking to farmers, because when we talk to farmers, we ask them, why did you plant a cover crop? The most obvious answer they give is, well, on a windy day, I see that my field doesn't have soil that's blowing into my neighbor's field, versus my neighbor's field does have soil that's blowing into someone else's field. In a wet day, I don't see as much ponding as my neighbor does. And then whenever I dig up the dirt, I see more earthworms than others. So that's got to have positive impacts on resiliency or productivity going forward. But when you can show them a metric of like the soil conservation of these practices led to, one less metric ton of soil loss per year, has been really critical, but also the farmer facing side, it helps us build a program that isn't just outcomes focused for a farmer that they're not familiar with. Because carbon intensity is a relatively new term, at least at the field level for farmers. So we can show them, we can drill down into that one category and show them what is contributing to your carbon intensity score. If we design a program that has a premium associated with lower carbon intensity scores, we can show you in your corn crop that 70% of the contribution could be fertilizer, and being more efficient with your fertilizer can reduce your carbon intensity score in terms that matters to them. To downstream customers as well, there's more transparency of the supply chain of what we're starting at, what we're trying to improve in any of those categories. And all of those categories are really important for us and our downstream customers when we want to co-design, because it's always a co-design program. And then for the public, one thing we started over the last couple of years is putting out a region ag report that helps show what our definitions are that align with field to market, and also the acreage that we're enrolling and what qualifies for those acreage as well. And that all wouldn't have been possible without the Fieldprint platform.
No, that's helpful. I think we've always tried to emphasize that holistic view of sustainability. You can't just look at one indicator. You have to look at them and look at them together. Maybe one final question sort of for this session. You run many projects, a lot of the acres, 10,000 some farmers, Carrie mentioned, almost 6.5 million acres. A lot of them are through your project. You have a lot of partners at the table for some of your regen efforts now, Mars, Pepsi, Bush Brothers, Nestle, and more. I'm curious, this is something we've always strived for. What do you see in the value of having a shared standardized platform when you have multiple members working within that same supply shed? Sort of everyone's overlapping, right? So that standardization, how do you see that as important?
Yeah, I mean, I think at a high level, I think everybody is aligned on what we're trying to accomplish here. It's positive environmental impacts on the categories of carbon intensity, biodiversity, soil erosion, soil fertility, etc. Where we get lost in the sauce a little bit is non-standardized, either definitions or outcomes. So the more we can remove some of that, what I would say is like not very impactful, like noise of trying to figure out, like the science and research is very important, but at the end of the day, if we kind of settle on a standardized approach, both with the methodology and the models, and we just focus on the goal of continuous improvement, at least you know what your starting point is. And you can improve off of your starting point. So it gets rid the standardization, the fact that a lot of those customers are field to market members as well has been really critical and really helpful. It also doesn't waste. I mean, in 2012, 2013, I think we used multiple models and platforms and methodologies as well. And whenever you convert, it almost feels like you have wasted years sometimes.
Yeah.
So that standardization, I think, eliminates a lot of the noise, a lot of the non-impactful conversations that are ultimately required, and helps you move forward on the task at hand, which at its simplest is engaging producers in a different way. Where in the past, ADM's been around for 120 years. Prior to 2012, it's really focused on productivity and cost. You had a productivity circle, you had a cost circle as well. Cannot ignore those two circles. Added environmental impacts, circle to that Venn diagram and try to design a program that falls in between all three. And the standardization component of that really helps like eliminate some of that other noise that you ultimately have.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for your insights and your ongoing support for Field to Market. So with that, I think we can pivot to some questions. I think Sydney is helping sort of meter those questions. Eric's on board here as well to answer some of them. Sydney, do we have some to start?
Yeah, we have some great questions to start, and thank you guys for that wonderful fireside chat. I know, Eric, you were typing some, and we could go back and maybe look at a few of those that we had earlier. So one of them was, is the historical data required, or can it be skipped, recognizing that the soil carbon results would be impacted? So do you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Of course. So user have the option to accept the pre-fill history. We're using cropland data layer to hone in for the crop history from 2008 to the latest year available. So we have at least a cash crop history. What we don't have is necessarily the specific tillage or the cover cropping that may be implemented at the field level. We're hoping to bring that in the future. We're currently using Census of Agriculture and USDA averages for NPK, for tillage intensity. But users, you know, if they participate in a project, they're probably going to be enrolling 2024, 2025 data, right? The most recent. So in those situations, unless something is very off on the crop history, we recommend accepting the pre-fill data and move on. But of course, for researchers, for people that really care and may have the time, then they are able to go back as far as they can for 2008 or even more recent to update, improve the crop history, because it does impact the model.
Thanks for that. We have another question that you kind of answered as well, but if you wanted to elaborate more, does this model include harvesting of cover crop for grain markets?
Right. So in that situation, let's say somebody plants winter wheat and they may, if the market situation is good, if the growth is good and they harvest it for grain, then it's not considered a cover crop for a sesame, it's a cash crop, and that develops its own crop interval for a cash crop. Cover crops are not harvested for economic gain, and then the footprint of cover cropping is included into the footprint of the next cash crop. So we have a little bit of terminology. We have been publishing our documentation, but yeah, if a cover crop gets harvested for economic gain, then it has to be converted to a cash crop.
Thanks. And I think, the next question kind of leads into kind of the baseline modeling frameworks that are being used and like calibration and validation for both the soil carbon process. Could you elaborate a little bit more on what all is going on with those processes?
Yeah, so one of the questions was related to the soil erosion model, wind and water erosion. We're very, very fortunate that USDA continues to staff and refine and maintaining the soil erosion models. We don't use Russell 2, we use Webb and Webb's wind and water erosion. So USDA continues to support those models. They provide sometimes yearly updates or updates every 2 years to the model. So that it's still those models are still alive, and we take them from USDA as is. For SWAT Plus, we're doing a little bit of additional work with the effort from the One Water Solution Institute at Colorado State University. They have taken basically the base version of the model for SWAT Plus, but they're bringing additional calibration, validation, focusing at the beginning on Midwest crop production systems. So that'll be corn, soybean, wheat rotations, sometimes some other grasses that are grown. So that effort is being underway, is being worked at the moment, and it will continue for this quarter. Eventually, that means that we'll be able to provide uncertainty quantification, in additional calibration, validation, refinement to SWAT Plus for Midwest production systems. And we invite supply chains, other commodity organizations to engage with us, with Field to Market, with Colorado State University to keep refining the model for other crops and regions.
Thank you. We've had a question too. Is there a way to bulk upload field data with the same management practices?
That'll
You
be
might have to answer that yourself, Sydney.
I could. But you guys are here to answer these questions about all the upcoming updates that we still have left on the docket.
I think we're working on several tools for bulk update. We're still refining some of our version 5 interface tools. So we are working on those. And Sydney, I would rely on you to say if we deploy that out, but I think we're working on that and other options right now for our users.
Yes, yeah, we're getting there, and that's definitely one of the first ones that we want to get back into the system. So we thank you guys for your patience as we work on that one. We've got plenty more wish list items that we have. We've also had another question about, are any projects or user groups focusing on water quality outcomes, or is it mainly GHG right now? I'm happy to talk a little bit about some of the projects that we currently have working here. We do have quite a few that are water quality focused as well. The first one that comes to mind is Sand County Foundation is working on an RCPP project, and that one's listed in our directory to learn more about. And it just depends on what the goals are for each project, I think. I think Paul did a great job of explaining what ADM's goals are and how they're focusing on it. But I think Paul Hishma also explained that, it's very holistic view too of what a Fieldprint project is. So it's not just, one resource concern. It's very much broad and all encompassing of all of them.
Yeah, and I guess I'm curious, Paul, at ADM, are you seeing focuses in areas like water quality specifically? You kind of touched on it maybe, but just curious to what extent those kind of indicators come up on your end.
Always comes up. Water is definitely a focus. It's one of those things where sometimes it can be like swallowing an elephant when you're trying to solve water quality, biodiversity, and carbon intensity at the same time. So we try to narrow in the scope a little bit of what is important to our downstream customers. Water quality, the great thing is for our projects, when you run it for multiple years, you start understanding the water quality metric that Fieldprint calculator has a little bit, but because it is more of a qualitative type of metric, it is, I don't want to say underwhelming because it's probably a negative word, but you can tell there's a desire for more quantitative type of results, specifically in water quality, which I know, like the nutrient tracking tool, which I believe is a USDA tool, is one that is pretty valuable as well. And that's maybe one of the things that can ultimately be improved, that more people will look on focusing specifically on water quality. But today we just track our water quality results on the Fieldprint calculator. I would say it's a small percentage that's specifically looking on water quality, but everybody is wanting to pay attention to it and make sure that we're not doing something that is negatively impacting water quality while we're positively impacting carbon intensity. And that's the great thing specifically of region ag practices, is almost all of them, the big three at least, cover crop conservation, tillage or no tillage, and fertilizer efficiency. If you have an improvement in that, it's multidimensional. So it's going to have a positive impact on multiple metrics. But that's probably like an improvement opportunity, Paul. I know you've heard that from a couple different times, specifically on the side.
Yep. Thanks.
Yeah, great, guys. Another question that we've had is, are there any planned future updates to the pest management or biodiversity components? And how is Field to Market approaching the quantification of these complex concepts?
Yeah, the metrics committee worked for about 1.5 years on biodiversity topics. We posted a proposal for revision. We received a lot of user feedback. Then we held 3 listening sessions where we discussed, what guidelines can we use, what standards matter for biodiversity. There has been a lot of discussion for many organizations. Biodiversity may mean just integrated pest management. Others really care about water biodiversity. Others care about underground biodiversity or above ground biodiversity. So it has been a very complex discussion. We hope to return to biodiversity and finalize a revision that provides value to all stakeholders. But yeah, we work on biodiversity for about a year with various subgroups and focus groups. And for now, we have taken a pause until further direction. But we want to return and revise, improve the biodiversity metric. It has been, it keeps bubbling up, and we think that it's important to answer that for stakeholders.
I'd like to, could I add
Yeah.
a point to that as well? It seems like the biodiversity metric is one that is very underdeveloped compared to like carbon intensity and even water quality a little bit. The one thing that I'll say about field to markets like Habitat Potential Index, which is their biodiversity metric, is it's pretty sophisticated the more that you look into it and understand it. And probably the only weakness specific on our side on delivering reports is our lack of understanding of how much work ultimately went into that and that metric specifically. So the more versed you can get on that, I think 15-page document that is the HPI document, I think the more comfortable you'll feel about how many things are contributing to that metric. And there's 3 categories of, I think it's, 0 to 50 and 50 to 79 and 81 above. A lot of our projects, we try to target 80% and above, or at least approach 80% specifically for row crops. And in today's world where I think it's going to take multiple years to develop science-backed quantitative biodiversity metrics, it's a pretty good metric to use in the meantime and get familiar with.
And Eric, we're working on synthesizing some of that metric documentation like biodiversity up on a public site, correct? You may have mentioned that earlier.
One thing is the documentation. So the current documentation is being worked on, but all the material, all the workshop, all the listening sessions, all the feedback that we receive for the biodiversity revision of 2023 and 2024, that's also completely public and available for stakeholders to digest. It's actually really interesting because it has over 100 comments from various member organizations related to biodiversity topics. So we're not starting, once we tackle the revision again, we're not starting from zero. We have a great baseline of information, of member perceptions, of models to consider. So yeah, all of that is public for members to review.
Great. Thank you guys so much for that. Carrie answered the first part of this question dealing with how long it took her to enter her data for her fields, but I think it might be important to kind of address that, is there an option to apply data to multiple fields if there's managed similarly or copy to a different interval? And I think, that's something that Paul and I have talked about, and that's definitely on the docket for, next level improvements for us to add that feature in. So thanks for that question. Go back and see if there are a few more. I think we have time for just maybe 1 or 2.
Yeah, go on.
Have all the national and state benchmarks been updated to reflect the V5 models, or have those been communicated out about talking points with customers and why those values are different?
That's a great question. In essence, we are working on it. Currently, the national and state benchmarks that you will see in version 5 are actually from version 4. So the numbers are a little bit mismatched, but we are working hard. We'll be releasing national level benchmarks first, and then we'll focus on state or regional benchmarks throughout the next of the year. So we're working on it. Right now, we are on the older version of benchmarks, and we hope to, we're working hard on that to make it an update soon.
Eric has his work cut out for him. You want to slip in one more question, Sydney? Is there a good one?
I think we can. It talks a little bit about how project selection works. So, how does that process work? Once a grower enters all of their data, do they see all the programs that they're eligible for or have the ability to enroll? And we're not quite at that feature of, open enrollment for everything. The project admin or the person, having that role of putting the project together, like a Paul Scheetz, receives a code to give to their growers to kind of opt into that project. And then they're able to kind of do that selection process that we went through the demo on. So that's how project enrollment works at this point.
Now, many QDMPs, on the other hand, might have individual programs. For example, I think, Paul, with your QDMP, you're working through FBN, I believe, and there a farmer, I think, enrolls and has a selection. Is that correct, of your programs?
Gradable now rather than FBN, but it's
Thank
gradable,
you.
and they do on their one thing they do for us too is the front end, so like the enrollment piece, not only the data collection piece, so they can see multiple programs, either ADM programs and sometimes other companies' programs as well. I also think John Deere, I don't know if there's a representative here, but I think they offer that a similar thing of being able to see programs around their area.
Yep. Well, good. I think we'll leave it there. I do hope everyone enjoyed learning more about this next generation of the Fieldprint platform. We feel strong with high scientific rigor and transparency, and some of what we talked about today is sustainability reporting, integration of the latest methods in science and standards alignment, streamlined data entry, and more. Feel strongly the platform is a valuable tool. We hope to help you meet your sustainability goals. You can scan the QR code you see on the screen to check out the platform today. And if you're interested in a personal demo, Sydney is standing by. If you want to explore more about the QDMP or API Partner Network, or if you want to start a project, please reach out to us at science@fieldtomarket.org. We'd love to help you. We're here to help. And thank you all for joining the webinar. We appreciate your time. A recap of the webinar will be sent out soon. And with that, we also hope you'll see us in just a few short weeks at the 2025 Sustainable Agriculture Summit in sunny Anaheim, California. All the staff will be there. We hope to see you. And with that, have a great rest of your day, and thank you very much.